Thank you for joining GX Leave Symposium 2022 Autumn despite a very busy schedule. First of all, I would like to introduce the flow of today's program briefly. First of all, Mr. Kajikawa of METI will deliver the opening remarks and he will briefly talk about GX League. After that, in the first of the section, at Session 1, the supporters of GX League will talk about the actions up to now. Furthermore, for the future of GX League, we would like to take time for discussion and we will close for the first half of the session after that. At the end of Session 1, we will take about 30 minutes for preparation for the latter half of the session, Session 2. Internationally recognized expert on ESG management, Ms. Hel Bank-Jorgensen will be welcomed, and she will be speaking about how decarbonization leads to corporate and economic growth by including the global perspective. Please allow me to introduce myself. I will be serving as the MC for today. My name is Nishida. Thank you very much for joining.
I would like to now invite Mr. Kajikawa Fumihiro of Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, who will deliver opening remarks and a brief explanation on GX League. Thank you and good morning. I am Kajikawa of METI. Today's symposium is being held under our auspices, and as an organizer, I would like to deliver a few words in way of opening remarks. I would like to touch on 3 points. Objective of this symposium, the actual activities under the GX League, and future plans. Those are the 3 points that I will be touching upon. First of all, regarding the objective of this symposium, exactly on the 31st of March, that was the deadline for supporting companies, and 440 supporters signed up. And we've additionally opened up for sign-up in September, and 551 supporters was the total at the end of October. So what have we done to date and what do we plan to do? We truly hope that those points will be understood by the supporters and the potential supporters who may be signing up in the months and years ahead. So I would like to share with you a brief report on the activities to date. Supporters who've signed up to date, who have already engaged in various activities, are also here to explain their cases, and through those presentations and through discussion, we want to deepen your understanding. So that's the purpose of this seminar. And on the second point regarding our activities, when we announced the basic vision of GX League, we talked about 3 activities. As we try to achieve 2050 carbon neutrality, what would be the opportunities? So creation of future vision, that's one. And it's 2, in the area of climate change, it's not just the government who are stakeholders, but NPOs and corporate federations and organizations who have to participate in rule meetings. So private and public sectors together must collaborate in order to proceed with rulemaking. So that's the second point. And thirdly, our carbon credit exchange. In order to efficiently reduce emissions, we need to make the rules for the carbon credit exchange scheme. So those were the 3 pillars of our activities that we had announced. And after April, we added one other pillar, GX Studio. We may not be able to go as far as rulemaking, but regarding various initiatives, what are the activities actually being pursued by companies? So sharing those examples or sharing with us what they wish to do could lead to matchmaking between various companies. So we are hosting GX Studio once a month. So 3+1 are the pillars of our activities. And in parallel to GX League, especially when it comes to carbon credit exchange, as a demonstration, METI commissioned the Tokyo Stock Exchange, and this year, trading of J credit at the exchange in order to proceed with carbon pricing is one initiative that we began this year. And today, future vision, rulemaking, and studio. These are the areas that we will be touching upon to report to you the activities done to date. On the other hand, regarding carbon credit exchange scheme, discussions began in September, and experts panel began their discussions, and we had briefing sessions with supporters of various companies, and by the end of December, GX League ITS Phase 1 basic policy will be released. And in addition, regarding the development of GX League by the end of this year, we hope to share with you a roadmap. So we will not be specifically discussing the carbon credit exchange scheme, but we will continue to engage in dialogue regarding this matter as well. In Session 1 and Session 2, supporters, and in Session 2, we will be listening to the presentation of someone who is an expert at the global stage in this area as food for thought. Now, the third point is future plans. We will be sharing the experiences of companies and what they want to do. And also the government is thinking about what policy would be most appropriate. So we hope that those aspirations will be in sync. You may know that GX Council was established under the Prime Minister's office by Prime Minister Kishida. Growth-oriented carbon pricing initiative was announced, and one element of that initiative is the GX League exchange scheme, carbon credit exchange scheme. Regarding GX League, dialogue with businesses is one function, and the other function is achieving emissions reduction and achieving economic growth through emissions reduction. Now, regarding the exchange, through the dialogue and through the meetings hosted by the Prime Minister's office, we hope to create a grand vision by the end of this year. Lastly, today, many companies will share different views and perspectives. If we are asked, are we perfect in implementing all the plans? No, because we weren't perfect in our communications. That had led to some misunderstandings. And on the other hand, I think many activities had led to many linkages between stakeholders. So learning by doing. That was one phrase we used, but there were many shortfalls. But I'm sure that this symposium will be very useful as we try to cause evolution in our activities as we listen to the supporters. So we truly hope that supporters would be frank in sharing with us their thoughts, and potential supporters, I hope that it would be useful to the potential supporters as they think seriously about signing up to the GX League. This is a wonderful studio. Sorry you can only see my face, but on the right-hand side, we are getting a great view of Mount Fuji. And this is the venue of the monthly GX studio. So we want to offer in-person events as well. So I truly hope that we would be able to communicate with many companies as possible as we try to promote these activities. Thank you very much. That was Mr. Kajikawa of METI.
From here and onward, we would like to ask supporters of GX League to speak about the actions up to now, starting from the first action, creation of future vision. The leader of Future Vision Nemoto-san, and also the representative of Future Vision Team 4, please. Good morning. Nemoto from Hakuhodo Secretariat. So first of all, about the progress of Future Vision, and I would like to walk you through the activities. Future Vision, this is the first step, GX League activities. So rather than summarizing, this is to expand our perspectives as the policy of our activities. The business opportunities for 2050 GX will be illustrated in detail. And since it is 2050, there is so much uncertainty in the society. And we try to explore various opportunities as to how to work on this. There are 440 supporters, and we try to ask for the volunteers, and a total of 101 companies raised hands to promote these activities. Please move on to the next page. Uncertainty is now taken into consideration with our activities, and we are using the methodology of a future insight. I won't talk about the details as the time is limited, but in the existing activities, this is not just the extension of the existing activities, but there are uncertain signs that are detected at the moment. So we just need to make sure to monitor that. And this is what we are requesting to the participants. As for details, please take a look at the Hitotsubashi Business Review, and please take a look at the methodology. Next page, please. And this is how we proceed. From June to September, we have roughly 3 months. Some of them are still in progress, but we are working on them. Mainly in STEP, we have conducted a multiple future insight workshop together with the supporters. Next page, please. As for the details, if you can take a look at the details of note in the Secretariat, please take a look at the article. Next page, please. So today, we have total of 101 companies divided into 10 groups, and they have set 20 future visions. I would like to introduce them all if I can, but Group 4 will introduce 2 future vision, and including the history of the discussion, we would like to briefly go over the examples. So Oikawa-san, can you start first? From Mitsuwa Holdings, my name is Oikawa. Thank you very much for joining today. And can you just go through the slides? What I'm going to talk about is a team of Group 4, and this is to look for the opportunity to develop a carbon billionaire, and I will also talk about the process for that. We had discussion within our team. As a result of the discussion, in 2050, CO2 emission will be linked to individuals. We were assuming such a situation. For example, if you go out of your house and you commute to your office, and after having lunch, and you have dinner with friend after work and return home, and the wearable device that you have, it may be these glasses, but the device will be uploading the consumption behavior to the cloud, and CO2 emission of that individual will be deducted from the balance of that individual. In other words, in various opportunities of daily lives, the behaviors is converted into CO2. This is what we are imagining. But this CO2 balance will not continue to reduce with consumption, but it is possible to increase as well. For example, if with the family you go to mountain with leisure and you do athletics, and this is actually leisure which is creating environmental value. When you play around, your balance of CO2 will increase. In 2050, there will be a penetration of solar power penetrated into each household. And for example, you will be able to generate power with sweat or body temperature. So you will have some kind of a power generating rare, and it may be easy to generate power, and you may be able to convert to monetary terms as well. In order to create environmental value, and mining devices are provided from various companies. Consumers are constrained by the budget allocated, but not being conscious about that. They are consuming by having these environmental values. For example, there are some people who are dedicated to trading these are environmental values, and we are calling them as a jigsaw, but there will be advent of a jigsaw. This kind of a world is what we have worked on with the decarbonization game to develop carbon billionaire. That is the explanation. Thank you. Then please move on to the next slide. My name is Takanori Hayashi, and from Informatics Company, I came to this event. I will be representing Team B of Group 4. In our team, there are 5 members, and they all come from different industry as a background. And as you can see, GX Vitalizer is created, and this is an opportunity to disseminate them. This is what we worked as a theme. GX Vitalizer is coined by our team, and it means a new profession amongst the members, as we discussed, toward decarbonization through GX. This can contribute to vitalization of the regions in Japan. And the professional people, we thought that they will be active all over Japan. In order to develop professionals specialized in GX, the government will have the certification scheme to support them, and the companies will support such technology. And the sponsors would also offer venues for demonstration. So GX activities will be deployed in different regions, and by also communicating the attractiveness of the regions, we're expecting that there will be a good cycle and a circulation. YouTuber is a new profession that we could not imagine in the past, but we will be able to have such profession in the future. In 2050, GX Vitalizer will become number 1 in the profession that the people would like to become. And let me just go through some of the examples. In daily lives, contribution to decarbonization will be considered as a side job, and they will be going through virtual and real, and they will not be trapped by one single location. And there will be no border between their mobility and residence, and autonomous, and due to residence, maybe majority of the people will be on a mobile residence basis. Most of the objects will be on this virtual area, and you need to face with a real and also virtual. Drone and powered suits will support the physical labor, and by using VR glass, skilled work can be acquired quite easily. In terms of systems, carbon credit market will be developed, and just like the equity market, the individuals should be able to have the international trading. That kind of platform should be possible, and it can become the source of revenue for GX Vitalizer. Actually, this sheet, there are many different ideas I would like to introduce, but due to time, I would like to conclude here. For those of you who are listening today, I'm hoping that you will be able to pick up some of the idea. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Oikawa-san, and thank you, Hayashi-san. These are just some of the examples of the actions. Lastly, just a word, but can you talk about the lesson that you learned, or can you talk about the outlook going forward, starting from Oikawa-san? Yes, then I would like to speak as to what we learned from this process. We had discussion intensively, and through the discussion, what I felt was that the challenge for carbon neutrality is the same, but since we are in different industries, we look from different angles. When the angles are different, if there are three people, we have more wisdom, and this is more like diversity. But a different approach, people have different background. When we get together, we come up with different ideas. By having a different background, working across the industries, we should be able to deliver larger result. This is the potential I felt. So briefly, that is my comment. Thank you very much. Then Mr. Hayashi, please. Yes, I agree. Just like Mr. Oikawa mentioned, and if I just give you another comment, this Future Vision Working Group had over 100 members, and we used Zoom and Milo technology or app to do the discussion and presentation. Even without an in-person meeting, a cross-sectoral discussion was possible. So going forward, remote work, or we should not be trapped to location, and we are expecting that this kind of work will have more progress. As to the outlook going forward, we should not just end with just giving ideas. We should brush up and refine, and we hope that this will serve as a trigger to utilize the ideas that we came up with, not for individually, but within the company. We hope that this will develop as the products or services. That is all. Thank you. Thank you for both of you, including the two ideas which were introduced today. There are total of 20 future visions. They are still in the process of finalization, and we hope that these can be shared with you at another opportunity. So that concludes the progress report of a future vision. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So Nemoto-san and the Team 4 member, thank you very much. Can you turn off the camera for the moment? We will be calling you at the time of the discussion, so please wait until now.
To introduce this second initiative, we'd like to have a presentation by the chair of the GX Business Working Group, Nomura Holdings, Inc. Today, we are represented by Ms. Saiki Yukari, Vice President, Sustainability Department of Nomura Holdings, who will brief us on the initiative. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. My name is Saiki Yukari of Nomura Holdings. Our company serves as the chair of GX League Business Working Group. And the time is short, but I would like to explain to you the activities under our working group, as well as the sustainability-related initiatives we are engaged in at Nomura Holdings. First of all, on GX League Business Working Group, rule making and market creation is what we do, and within the GX League, this was the first working group that was launched. Nomura included, there are 6 leading companies and 73 member companies, and the total number is 79 companies who are engaged with high level of interest. And the working group is represented by wide-ranging sectors, including manufacturing, trading, and finance. The objective of this working group is to find the opportunities that business can contribute to climate change towards carbon neutrality at the global basis, such as appropriate indicators to evaluate the emissions reductions achieved through goods and services offered to the market. And what is the final goal? As we contemplate the rulemaking by the private and public sector regarding the opportunities for businesses to contribute to climate change, we would like to come up with a guidance covering the concept, the items that should be disclosed and evaluated, and the evaluation metrics. Further, based upon such guidance, we would like to create what we may call as the contribution disclosure initiatives regarding climate change. And we also would like to release to the global community the guidance and other deliverables of this working group in order to have such methodology penetrate amongst the institutional investors on a worldwide basis as they evaluate the investee companies. Now, first of all, what is the actual profile of evaluation that we want to contemplate? Today, when it comes to business evaluation, there is only focus placed only on risk. Even if companies develop energy conservation products that would contribute to decarbonization, their scope 3 would increase the more they sell such products. Further, in emerging and developing countries with high emission factors, it is important that such products would be sold. But the more such products are sold in those emerging and developing countries, their scope 3 will increase. So ironic. So we believe that evaluation should be conducted not only over risk but over opportunities as well. Companies that have developed goods and services that contribute to emissions reduction and opportunities that they've created through innovation should be duly evaluated. And through such efforts, and through these companies being assessed highly, then further innovation promotion by those companies could be expected. So, what are we doing in our working group in order to have those opportunities be evaluated and disclosed? First, what are the challenges regarding the disclosure of opportunities, climate-related opportunities between investors and corporates? What are the challenges? We are engaged in frank discussion on the challenges. We are trying to hear from the financial institutions what they want to be evaluated. And further, we are inviting experts from Schroeder or Nomura Asset Management, which is our group company, in order to give us lectures on the emissions contributions that companies are making and how evaluation is being done, in order to learn more about what the points are that are being evaluated in terms of opportunities by investors. Second, we are trying to come up with a clear understanding on the concept and the items of evaluation regarding climate-related opportunities. First, we don't have a really in-depth definition or concept of what ought to be called as opportunities. So we need to come up with a concept of opportunity and also define the measure objective of evaluating those opportunities. And we are also trying to identify the items to be evaluated. Thirdly, we are trying to promote the disclosure of climate-related opportunities. And in order to promote such disclosure, what are the businesses supposed to be concretely disclosing, or what can they disclose? What can they and what should be disclosed? And fourthly, we are also trying to establish international and global disclosure rules for climate-related opportunities to be used in the global society. So we want to create a set of guidelines to be communicated within and outside of Japan. But at the same time, in order to ensure consistency with existing international guidelines, we are trying to collaborate with those guideline setters. Now, what is the kind of society that we, the GX League Business Working Group, aims to establish? Companies that are contributing to emissions reduction should be evaluated duly by their opportunities being evaluated by investors, and that would lead to further innovation by those companies. That's the kind of positive spiral we wish to create. Of course, companies will have to continue their efforts for emissions reductions, but at the same time, we want to support their activities to create opportunities out of their emission reduction activity, so that they could be proactive rather than passive to capture those opportunities. Finally, let me briefly explain to you what we are doing in Nomura Group. As is identified by the GX League Business Working Group, we are not focusing on either risk or opportunity. Both are necessary. GHG emissions, scope 1, 2 from business outlets by 2030, we want to achieve net zero. And scope 15, investment portfolio, we are achieving net zero by 2050. Scope 3, category 15. Further, wholesale, retail, investment management. In these three areas of Nomura Holdings and Nomura Securities, we want these activities to be done in order to support our clients. In order to achieve decarbonization of the society, it is estimated that $122 trillion would be needed by 2050, and the majority to be in demand in Asia. At Nomura Group, in order to support the transition to decarbonized societies by the clients, by March 2026, in the next 5 years, we want to engage in a total amount of deals amounting to $125 billion in sustainable finance. In investment banking, we have provided finance to many sustainable projects in Japan. But in October this year, we established the Sustainable Finance Department to engage more actively in such deals. By engaging in sustainability bonds or green bonds issuance, we think that we would be able to contribute to our clients from the financing perspective. The GX League Business Working Group is assuming the disclosure of opportunities in climate-related areas, and we think that through such activities, our Sustainable Finance Department can make great contributions. Next, at Nomura Asset Management, which is our investment management arm, the ESG score was revised this year, and in the analysis items of GHG emissions and transition risk, the absorption amount is reflected in the GHG calculation. So companies that are absorbing GHG would be able to be evaluated positively. And this reflects the voices of the investors who wanted more information regarding such activities. And in addition to Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions information, companies are making more efforts to contribute to decarbonization, and those efforts should be reflected in the evaluation of them as potential investees. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Saiki, for the presentation. Moving on to the third action on GX Studio. Facilitator of GX Studio, Uechi-san, please. I'm responsible for GX Studio. My name is Uechi from Hakuhodo, and from here I would like to talk about the action of GX Studio. And in order to promote GX, this is the most casual opportunity. So a future vision, a co-creation, this does not have any clear output, but the dialogue itself is the objective here. And as to the reason why we do the dialogue, this is basically to serve as a ground for collaboration with the supporters, and this is designed for exchange amongst the supporters. Please move on to the next page. At GX Studio, every time we base on the theme that we receive from the supporters. If we talk about the recent three cases, the first one is related to the behavior change of our consumers. Second one is clean energy. And the third one is the promotion of GX in the entire supply chain. Next page, please. At each session at the studio, there will be presentation from the supporter, and based on that, we have discussion amongst the supporters. We are separating into two parts. Up to now, including online participation, we have over 150 people joining, so we have very active discussion. Please move on. Through note, we open how we discuss. Anyone is able to freely join at the GX studio. As to the specific contents of the discussion, we are not taking them up, but after the presentation, we are just briefly providing what we discussed. So please take a look at this if you have time. So from here, the actual panelist for the first session, Mr. Okano from Lion Corporation, is joining as the guest. So Mr. Okano, thank you for joining. So briefly, can you introduce yourself? I'm Okano from Lion Corporation. First of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak with many people, and I'm happy that I was able to have opportunity to speak with many people. I may be speaking up today. Thank you very much. I hope you will speak up today. And Mr. Okano, you joined in the first session for the behavior change of consumers. And in order to achieve eco-friendly lifestyle to the world, you talked about the proposal of the ecological lifestyle. Please move on. And lastly, these are the points to be discussed at the GX League, focusing on values of the consumers, and by proposing the eco lifestyle to create rules. And you talked about the two very important points. So today, you are in the GX studio, and I would like to hear how you felt. In the area of decarbonization, there are people with different backgrounds, and you spoke to such audience, and it was a very casual session. And what were the difficulties you faced through such session? Yes, we all come from different industries, and we have a different awareness on the challenges we have. So we had differences in our languages. That's what I felt by joining the session. If I make one mistake, even amongst the industries and even amongst companies, competition and creation, we thought that those would not be compatible. That was my concern. So we need to start by dispelling such a concern. Otherwise, it would not go successfully. There was also difficulties with the dialogue. Yes, I agree with you. There's no common language. And in some cases, there are companies who you were competing with in the past, and you need to think about how to shake hands with such companies. That is a difficult part. Moving on to the next question. At GX Studio, after presentation, there is discussion. And Mr. Okano and the Lion members joined the discussion. And by taking this opportunity, I would like to ask what you discussed in the discussion. Yes, what was most impressive was that these are operators who are like a B2B, but there's always customers at the very end. And that was something that they were conscious about. So there were many areas we can sympathize with. There are two aspects to rulemaking. One is a more suppressive type rulemaking from the regulatory part, and there's also a different type of rulemaking. And in this situation, in order to change the behavior of consumers, if we can create something that can have empathy, we thought that it can serve as a model to the world from Japan. So empathy type of rule making, that is a very important perspective. It's true that in many cases people just tend to look at rules which are more suppressive. Yes, and economically there's a higher potential for shrinking. So in order to solve the challenges, maybe it's on the opposite direction of creating a value. If we can switch over to empathy, it may be more positive to business, and it may be more developmental. There's no concreteness at the moment, but we were able to feel that this can serve as a trigger. So this kind of space in the studio was very interesting. Thank you very much for giving us such a motivating comment. Yes, as you mentioned, B2B company, even if people come from B2B company, they're conscious about end users. If you are able to have a trigger to have empathy in the rulemaking, that can be insightful. Well, the time is limited, but now coming to the last question. In your presentation, sustainable contribution and sustainable development of company, there was a trade-on between the two. And also you talked about to be with the values. Those were the keywords which were impressive. You spoke in the presentation, but what do you value in that process? Can you speak about that as well? From social value, it's urgent to address decarbonization. And we should not push that to the consumers. It's very difficult for them to understand. It's not the standard. So it's not nudge, but it just happened to be so. And how can we generate that? Maybe not individual companies, but a broad range of companies. Maybe in the same industry, we may be able to change the framework. We may have both a vertical and a horizontal thread, and we probably need to expand such initiative. So dialogue with companies, a dialogue with customers and consumers. The keyword is dialogue. And the studio itself. Yes, I'm very happy to hear that we have the same ambition. In the presentation, you talked about pouch. Yes, pouch to customer. At the very beginning, it's convenient, it's less expensive, it was accessible, there was convenience, but once they noticed that it was a market which grew by bottle, but the plastic consumption is reduced by 70 to 80%. It just happened to be so. This is what Japan can be proud of. I hope that this can be something that we can proud of to the overseas countries. I agree. In the presentation, you talked about a pouch package, and I was so surprised that this is only unique to Japan. And this Japanese style GX promotion, we hope that this can be communicated to the world as well. There are so many questions I want to ask, but since it is time, we would like to move on to the next part. Thank you very much, Mr. Okano. Thank you very much. And here, we would like to discuss on the actions of a GX League up to now and move on to the discussion of a GX League. From here, Ms. Saiki from Nomura Holdings and Mr. Kajikawa from METI will join in the session. Also from online, two members from Team 4 of Future Vision will be joining. Can you turn on the camera from the Future Vision team? Later on, we will ask questions to these two members as well. So Uechi-san, please go ahead to moderate the session. Thank you very much, Okano-san, Saiki-san, and Kajikawa-san. And can you see us, Oikawa-san and Saiki-san? Yes, we can see you. Thank you. From here and onward, the future and the past of GX League. Based on what we have done, what should we do? And we would like to have a casual discussion now. Before we get into the discussion, since we have this opportunity, for about a year, you participated in GX League, and can I ask what your impression is, starting from Oikawa-san? Yes. Then, very briefly, it was really enjoyable. Of course, we are spending time, quite much time. But if I may explain what was enjoyable, we work with people from different industries to create something together. Since we have different background, our perspectives and the opinions are different. When we do this internally, we always have the same viewpoint. So having different opinions from different angles is something fresh. That is my brief comment. Thank you very much. Yes, from the Secretariat, a dialogue is being done. And as Okano-san mentioned earlier, you are having different perspectives, and that is quite interesting. So from working group, Saiki-san, can you also talk about that?
Thank you very much. My comment will be similar, but the GX League Business Working Group that I chair is represented by various different sectors. So unexpected comments were raised as I moderated various sessions. So I sometimes became voiceless, not knowing how to respond. But we're still in the process of trying to create the guidance, and this is still work in progress. But of course, it's natural that different views are shared because different sectors are representative. And all the more so, we hope that we would be able to come up with really practical guidance. So it's exciting and thrilling. Right, thrilling. And excitement are two sides of the same coin. Many others have said so, but Kajikawa-san, in planning for the GX League, we discussed that rather than having the initiative be participated by just one sector or one company, you always said that you want diverse stakeholders to participate. So from such perspective, how do you look at the current status quo? Having fun or thrilling? Thank you for sharing those frank comments. I truly feel happy that you're enjoying, but at the same time, it's very difficult to have everyone participate. And the business working group is represented by 80 companies and Future Vision 101. Many people collaborating with each other is difficult in terms of methodology. And so far, I think we have been quite productive, but how can we further make this collaboration productive is another challenge.
Yes, to the substantive rule meeting, we need to connect to that. Thank you very much for your comment. And if we just go around, we just end up with the impressions only. So we would like to move on to the next theme. This may be close to the impression, especially working group, future vision, creation, and studio. And there are people who have gathered to dialogues which are cross-sectoral. And after joining the dialogues, what are the potential that you felt? There are some overlaps, but what are the impressions? Okano-san, can you speak first, since we have not heard from you? Yes. we spoke with many different companies, and they all have different strengths and different awareness on the challenges. That was nice to know, especially when they speak with the customers. We spoke about it, and the impact is high, but the customers who have less impact. But in our case, we have less impact, but the frequency is high. When we can work together, we may be able to have different messages. Thank you very much. Yes, I agree. The companies which have contact with customers, and you may be able to share your views to companies which have less contact. We were able to notice that again. So moving on to online, can we ask Hayashi-san? Yes. I was involved in the working group for creation of future vision. And one point, 2050, a very long future. We did not have a chance to think about the future in the long term. And in such a situation, imagination or creativity are required. And we had opportunity to get together from over 100 industries, and hosted by the government is something that we appreciate. And without the support from the government, we would not have had the chance to have this kind of gathering. And personally, I have 2 children in my generation, and after 2050, the children's generation, we hope that they will be able to live in this world. And in order to do that, what should we do as our responsibility? It was a good opportunity to revisit that. Thank you very much. And future vision, you have the nature to think over society. And if you just think about one company, you just tend to focus on your own service. But if the different industries can discuss with the others, including the children and the future consumers, it may be a good opportunity to consider. So up to now, we asked the studio and also Future Vision, and now asking to Saiki-san again. Working group has a different nature from the other dialogues. Ms. Saiki and Nomura Holding members are serving as the leaders in the dialogues. So what is the potential that you felt?
Thank you. The participating businesses are extremely candid and frank. And I think it's the first time that so many diverse sectors engage in frank and serious discussions on climate change. And this is probably the first such initiative. And centering around the manufacturing sector, they are strongly hoping that they would be evaluated highly because they are making great efforts, but they don't know how. They had been engaged in dialogue with Nomura Asset Management, but in a meeting represented by various companies, there was discussion. And not just Nomura Asset Management, but financial institutions suggested what they ought to be disclosing. But this work is extremely nascent still, but I think it's a meaningful effort. And Schroeder Investment is not a member, but they came in as an expert, and the Singapore-based person wrote a report in English from Singapore about the climate-related information evaluation, and there were so many questions from the audience, and I truly felt the enthusiasm. So I think what we're doing is extremely meaningful. Thank you. I agree, especially when it comes to evaluation and deciding on the metrics. So far, yes, companies voiced the necessity of being evaluated duly for their efforts, but how? There is no yardstick. So you got together and began to engage in dialogue. So what would be the best way to evaluate? I think the question has changed. Not do we evaluate or not, but how to evaluate. So that's a progress. Thank you. Lastly, let me go to the final theme, which is what you wish to do in the future through GX League. Rather than should, we should focus on want. That's our concept. What do you want to do? We attach importance to what people want to do. So final question. Choose something that you want to do through GX League. And it doesn't have to be in the 3 areas of activities that you had participated in. Oikawa-san.
Yes, there are 2 points. And through a future vision, there are things that we are addressing and we want to address. The first one is that we are trying to create economic value through Future Vision Group. And within Group 4, there are some operators who are working with waste and they are trying to have the J credit seed of burying the food loss, and we started to examine such opportunity. This is going to be mid to long range goal, but we just started to work on this kind of initiative. Yes, we are encouraged to hear that. And another one that we want to achieve is on the extension of what we have done. CO2 is something that we are trying to reduce, but there will be emission as well. And we need to have economic value creation by offsetting that. For example, companies, employees, in their daily lives, they reduce CO2, and if they can generate economic values out of that, it may be interesting. For example, we have LEDs, and this can create economic value. The companies can take initiative, and by collecting that, it should be allocated to the mission rights of the companies. Maybe the initiative will be more accelerated, just like in case of a pouch of a lion. Maybe we need to work on the institutional design. I'm just speaking about the ideas. I'm just mentioning whatever comes up to my mind. So it should be refined, but this kind of initiative is necessary. So rather, the companies, for example, through telework, the electricity of consumption at the companies will be reduced slightly. But if you take a look at the overall Japan, due to remote work, there is increased electricity consumption. So maybe I will be scolded that we are beyond scope 3, but scope 4 or scope X, as the company's responsibility, if there could be rulemaking, we are hoping to discuss on such aspect as well. That concludes my part. Thank you very much. So having GX League as a trigger, amongst the supporters, you can have a collaboration, and also within a GX League, all the companies may be able to collaborate with each other. So you just spoke about the want part. Thank you very much. So now to Hayashi-san from Future Vision. Can you speak as well? Yes, there are 2 points from me. Since I'm given this kind of opportunity, I was giving ideas. We had a total of 20 teams, and there were many ideas. We should not end in this process, but in order to achieve them, as an all-out effort between public and private, we need to work on examination of the policies. We hope that this will be leveraged. And personally, in the business that I'm involved, I'm hoping to promote them as well. In addition, within GX League, especially in the creation of Future Vision, amongst the members, there are members who are hoping to develop this as a business. So maybe we can have something like a business competition. Thank you very much. A business competition. Thank you for giving the concrete idea. If we can visualize the actions taken by companies, and if we can have a structure to promote them, that will be ideal. Thank you very much for good comments. So turning to Ms. Saiki.
GX League, 551 companies have signed up. That's a high number. In the business working group, we receive several different views, but it's the first ever in Japan in rule making. But if we become excessively particular about being the first Japanese rules, we don't want to be a Galapagos. Because companies don't want to be evaluated just by Japanese investors. So if there are existing global guidances already out there, there has to be consistency between those global guidances versus what we create. And we are engaged in research, but when we have 551 companies, they are represented by various sectors. So each company has the affiliation they belong to in terms of global trade organizations, and those links would become very important as we try to secure consistency in the rules making and guidance. Of course, we need the support of the government, including METI, and we would be encouraged. But in terms of private sector-led efforts, such linkage of companies to those trade organizations is going to be really strong.
Yes, I agree that the linkage with everyone should be included to have a greater initiative. Japan's perspective is also important, but we should make sure that it would not be unique to Japan. Not just about the contents, but since I'm involved as a member from Hakuhodo, we hope that our actions in GX League will be communicated and reaching out to the world as well. We hope to share that this will be meaningful to the world, and it should be reachable to the world as well. Thank you very much. And lastly, may I ask to Okano-san? Yes, just like Ms. Saiki mentioned, Galapagos. To be like a Galapagos is something that Japan often does. So conversely, why do we tend to be like that? In the co-creation, the companies try to take different actions. If we have the common values, if we can have networking like this from the early stage, even if we start differently, in the end, we may have a more flexible network. And we are hoping to work on something like that in the future. As I said, from the suppressive rule, we should be more co-creating and empathizing a rule. Although my effort will be limited, we hope to work that together with the other people. Thank you very much. You're right. With empathy, rule-making with empathy, it's not just amongst the supporters, not just from Japan, but it should be sympathized by the world as well. So you're speaking about such rules. Yes, we should not be just the recipient, but we need to be more proactive in making the approaches. If we have different opinions, we need to have more dialogues. Japan, not just making the strategy, but we should value more of the actions in the implementation side. Thank you very much for the very valuable advice. We can go on forever. And lastly, from Mr. Kajikawa, you heard about the real voice on real time from the supporters. And what is your reaction? Your initiative of GX League next year should be created from now, but did you find something new?
Thank you for the question. Future vision and rule making in the business working group and GX studio. Dialogue is important, but what next after dialogue? Mr. Okano mentioned competition or empathy-oriented rulemaking. That's a key word. because when we talk about climate change, why are you emitting? We will enforce rules. That's the kind of attitude. And many businesses think that it's a must do. They don't feel it's a fun thing to do. And many businesses are still without any vision that that could become a growth opportunity in the future. And in the future vision, we talked about food loss or waste. And that's fun to make it a business. And so it's not restricting emissions, but positively evaluating the reduced emission as an added value. So that kind of scheme or structure should be established. Of course, Japan shouldn't become Galapagos, but at the same time, we should be asserting what we think is right as a concept and then solicit sympathy towards such concept. This year is the preparatory period, so we are engaged in various trials, but in terms of rulemaking, in addition to the business working group led by Saiki-san and Nomura, many other opinions are being received. So through dialogue, empathy type of rulemaking should be done so that it is understood by consumers around the world as they engage in their own initiatives for climate change. So we hope that it would become an initiative of such nature. And it's not just through this seminar, but we received many opinions. But through the comments we've received today and through other comments, we would like to plan for activities in the future starting from next year.
Thank you very much. We can go on endlessly, but since it is about time, we would like to conclude the discussion here. On behalf of GX League, we asked 5 members to speak about what they want to do. As we mentioned in the middle of the session, at GX League, the participants should be able to discover what they want to do, and we are hoping to be able to support. As we discussed today at the GX League, when there are approaches, then the participating companies will be able to discover what they want to do as a new initiative. We appreciate that from the Secretariat perspective. So that is our request. And thank you very much to the panelists for joining today. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. With this, we would like to conclude session 1. Let me introduce the flow after this of this program. From 11:30, we will resume session 2. At session 2, internationally recognized expert on ESG management, Ms. Helbanka Jorgensen, will join, and she will deliver roughly 40 minutes of keynote speech, and she will be speaking on how decarbonization leads to corporate economic growth, including the global perspectives through the discussion. We would like to close for now. Thank you very much for joining.